So, someone once tried to convince me that I needed more healing because I was no longer willing to put up with their unhealed behaviors that continuously put me in a triggered state. They tried to make it seem like I was the problem for expressing my boundaries and calling them on their unhealthy, emotional imbalance and immature, egotistical nature after having enough of constantly being subjected to their disrespect and inconsideration of who I have been to them and who I have grown to be. Listen, y'all. When you have done your shadow work and have healed from certain traumatic experiences, it does not mean that you have developed a tolerance for said experience repeating in your life. Okay? Healing and overcoming an incident does not mean that you have developed the capacity, okay, to keep dealing with said trauma, or that you are no longer triggered if this experience or a similar one shows up in your life. Okay? It simply means that you are now aligned with your true inner power, okay? Your true self, and are no longer willing to compromise your values and inner truth for anyone's comfort or complacency, okay? If that individual truly valued you in their life, they would respect your boundaries instead of expecting you to lower your vibration to appease their unhealed state of being. When trauma is experienced, a part of the soul is fragmented and becomes separated. That soul fragment becomes a separate entity that stands alone. Okay? Healing is the tool that allows us to reintegrate the parts of ourselves that have been lost or separated from us because of the trauma we experienced. All right? So, healing brings self awareness that highlights your self worth and self respect and brings your value to the forefront. When we have reintegrated those lost parts of ourselves due to trauma experienced, we develop the strength and the courage to stand in our power and knowing of who we are, allowing us the clarity to know when things like the actions of someone else are not in alignment with our core truth or spirit. Getting triggered by something, you have healed from does not necessarily mean you have not done the work. Okay? If you have done the work and experience a trigger, that trigger indicates that whatever is happening is not in alignment with your core truth. And you have a choice to communicate that with the doer or remove yourself from the space or environment of said trigger. If you're in a situation where you can address your concerns with the doer and they respect you as someone worthy or valuable in their life, they will take the steps to refine their actions, especially if their actions are coming from an unhealed state within them. Okay? When you do speak up and the doer continues to violate your boundaries, you have a choice to remain in that abusive situation or walk away. Yes, you heard me correctly. I said abusive. If you're constantly being triggered when you have healed and enforced your boundaries around said situation, right? And someone is constantly dismissing your wishes, regardless of what they say, they do not ultimately respect or value your worth. Okay? It is essential to understand that this person is most likely expressing from an unhealed state. All right? If you have been dedicated to your healing journey and they are not, they have no right to continuously violate your state of being through emotional, mental, or even physical abuse. If that person truly valued your energy in their life, they would respect your boundaries and add to your joy. Their actions should reflect what nourishes you and feeds your soul, what empowers and feeds your energy instead of draining you mentally, emotionally, and or physically. All right? I see it as a form of abuse because every time we experience trauma or get triggered, our bodies naturally enter fight or flight mode, which is a built in survival mechanism designed to protect us, right? It's not just mental or emotional, okay? It's physiological. Your body perceives danger and boom, your sympathetic nervous system hits the alarm, okay? So let's break this down clearly, right? So you have the trigger, okay? It all starts when your brain picks up on a perceived threat, okay? It could be physical, emotional, or even just a thought that sparks stress or fear, okay? What happens next? All right, your sympathetic nervous system releases stress hormones like adrenaline or cortisol, right? This kicks off changes like increased heart rate and blood flow to your muscles. Okay. You begin to have fast and shallow breathing. All right. Your pupils dilate. Okay. Raise blood sugar for quick energy. All right. Muscle tension because you're ready for action. All right. The purpose is simple: survival. Your body is preparing to fight or engage. Okay. Run. In other words, get the fuck out of Dodge. Freeze, where the senses are numbed, where you're pretty much playing dead, or fawn, which is to submit or assimilate with the threat. Okay, depending on how it thinks it can best protect you, that's what it's gonna do. All right, so now here's the thing: this is super useful if you're actually in danger, right? But when it becomes your default state, when you're living in a constant loop of stress and survival, it's damaging. All right? I know because I've lived there for years. When the stress response stays on, it starts shutting down anything that's not essential for immediate survival. Things like your digestion, hormones, and tissue repair paused. Okay? Your neocortex, where rational thought, planning, and emotional regulation happen, dimmed. Your body becomes locked into survival mode, losing its ability to feel safe, to rest, or to heal. You may even lose pain sensitivity temporarily or start sweating as your body tries to regulate itself. Okay? Over time, this leads to nervous system burnout, emotional dysregulation, and a deep disconnection from one's body and intuition. Okay? So, yes, fight or flight serves a purpose, but it is not meant to be a permanent state. All right? Healing helps you shift out of that survival loop so you can finally start living, not just surviving. So, imagine how being repeatedly in that state can and will cause overstimulation to your nervous system with anxiety, muscle tension, numbness. Yes, everyone has free will, and it is up to each person to individually choose to heal from their trauma and deal with their triggers, right? But if you decide through your free will to be in a relationship with another, all right, no matter the dynamic, there should be a level of mutual respect and value for that person. Okay? The actions of that person will reflect that. If you find yourself in a relationship where your boundaries are constantly being overlooked, especially by someone who is unhealed, because if they were healed, it would be a mutual exchange based on integrity, respect, and value. All right? It is essential to choose yourself, especially if that individual is the antagonist of the trauma that you've experienced. All right? I mean, your healed self, which aligns with your self worth and unconditional self respect, will take the necessary action to protect what you have healed and overcome. Okay? Besides, anyone who claims to love you will first love and value themselves and know how to treat you, feed your spirit, and nourish your energy, and not deplete you by continuously overlooking or dishonoring the things that add to you being your best self, all right, and maintaining a high frequency vibration. Also, remember that it is difficult to heal from the very environment that hurt you, okay? Do not allow anyone to gaslight you into thinking that if you're still allowing yourself to be triggered by their actions, that you haven't healed, okay? Once you have healed from something, it is essential to shift the environment around it, okay? It is essential to have a safe space in your environment, whether physical, mental, emotional, or spiritual, that is supportive and will assist you with moving through these triggers. It is your right to create and have that safe space that you can retreat to, because in this human state, no matter the level of healing we have advanced to, there's always room for more healing. It's necessary for continued growth. If this individual's actions are geared towards being dismissive, destructive, or dangerous to your well-being, healing, and soul ascension, right? When they should be a safe space for you, your inner spirit will have the courage to speak on it. And if that brings about a combative reaction as opposed to, an enlightened response, they are not your person. Please understand that you are being led to put yourself first, love yourself first, and do whatever it takes within your control to find your safe space when having the courage to speak up for yourself. We are not able to control what anyone else does with their free will. However, we can attune our inner truth and align ourselves with people and experiences that respect and value our energy at all times. Okay? That will add value to our lives and not take away from the value that we have created within. All right? This takes work. All right. So it's not about allowing any and everybody to just come in, and take away from what you have done by expressing things and saying that you have not healed because you're not willing to put up with their unhealed selves. You understand? By causing offense to your nervous system, by continuing to do things that cause you to be triggered, by being disrespectful to your nervous system, by continuously, having actions that are destructive to your well being. No. Okay? I'm at the point in my life, right, where if I've established my boundaries with someone and they choose to continuously and actively dishonor my truth, and when addressing the situation, bring their free will into play and are inconsiderate of how their actions may be affecting my well being by saying it doesn't matter what they do, by saying it doesn't matter what they do, I am responsible for my triggers. Even if my triggers are based on their actions, what they're saying at the end of the day is aligned with universal law. Okay? Everyone is responsible for their actions, their choices, how they choose to respond. However, it is also a natural aspect or law that anyone who claims to love or value your worth will also utilize their free will to implement actions that will add to your best experience and not take away from it. Okay? So, as we know, no one is responsible for our actions or reactions. Okay? That is the personal responsibility of each individual. Okay? We are all individually responsible for our joy, our happiness, healing, and growth. Okay? We get that. All right? We are all responsible for the experiences we choose to draw into our reality. Okay? That's facts. All right? What I am saying is if someone chooses to experience with you on your journey, it is also their responsibility to add value to your life. And if they are not and refuse to heal their inner wounds that are causing them to show up with imbalance, okay, that may not be where you desire to continue to input your time and energy. All right? It's not about being nice and suppressing your pain to appease anyone's ego. Try being nice to yourself first by honoring what is in the best interest of your well being. All right? And all that is meant for you will align and come into fruition. I read a quote that said, if you never heal from what hurt you, you bleed on the people that didn't cut you. That's some deep, deep stuff right there. All right? So get your healing on, man. All right? Peace, love, light, and healing. This is SanchiaDivine.